most bloody, violent scenes in slasher movies. He's got like all his favorite moments from slasher movies, of women getting murdered, all cut together, and he's jerking off, and that's the opening credits. And it's just like, there was like nothing like that available in America. They're like, oh my God, this is the wildest shit ever, man. This is amazing. And so I remember I was like sitting at Video Archives and I was saying, well, I want to do shit like that when I'm making movies. And then one of the guys said, well, they won't let you, Quentin. And my answer was, well, who's they? Who are they to tell me what I can and can't do, can or cannot do? And at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. I never let they stop me. I did what I wanted to do. And by doing what I wanted to do, we changed the 90s. The 90s stopped being politically correct. And all of a sudden, like in 1 year, Reservoir Dogs, El Mariachi, Man Bites Dog, Romeo is Bleeding. I mean, all these like wild, wild, ironic, violent movies started coming out that just didn't exist in 1989.
That's so true.
And then comes Seven, and then I mean, you know, it's like we built a bridge, and then everyone followed it. Everyone went over the bridge.
Was there any resistance? Like when you wrote Reservoir Dogs and people are going over it, were there any people that wanted to water it down or censor it or say it'd be more marketable if maybe you took certain scenes out? Or
well, there was in script form, a lot of the violent stuff just kind of went over their heads because they just kind of saw it as a play. There's violent stuff, but they were talking about how much talking was in it. But when I finished it and had been on the film festival circuit with it for a year, when Miramax bought it, Harvey tried to talk me into cutting the torture scene out, with Mr. Blonde and the guy in the chair.
Getting his ear cut off?
Yeah. He tried to talk me out of that. And his reasoning was, he might ended up being right. All right, his reasoning was, look, Quentin, this is a movie that anybody can watch. But with that torture scene, you're going to alienate women. They're not going to want to see this. So you're putting your own movie in a little box. But without that scene, anybody can go and see this movie and everybody will enjoy it. And that's kind of actually where I became me, because Harvey was used to winning these type of arguments. And he had a bunch of yes men going, but because I had actually been on the film festival circuit for an entire year, one, I saw that he was right, because people were always walking out during that scene. Sometimes it would be 5, sometimes it would be 35. All right, they were always walking out, because also it's a film festival. You don't exactly know what you're seeing. You know, you read it in the catalog, it sounds interesting. You know, it's not like it's not like you're being set up the way you are when a movie opens theatrically.
Right.
You know, so but I did know that that was a moment of truth for most people, that scene. But now I think it's the best scene in the fucking movie. So and I'd spent a year watching it, so I wasn't buffaloed. And I go, well, you know, it's that movie. It's what the movie is, and you may be right, but I don't care. This is the movie, and it has that scene. And Harvey realized he wasn't going to get his way, and he's used to getting his way. I stood fast, and there was like a beat of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're going to leave the scene in, and I want you to remember there was Miramax who left it alone.
Wow. That's an interesting way to control the situation, right?
Yeah.
Take it and bring it all back to him. How weird is it for you to have had a relationship with that guy for all these years, making all these films, and now see what he's become?
It's sad. It's sad. It was like, you know, he wasn't just this guy who financed my movies. He was, you know, kind of like a father figure. I mean, he was kind of a fucked up father figure, but that's most people's fucking father. Yeah. You know, he was a fucked up father figure, but he was like, you know, he was involved in, you know, my professional life for like a long, long time. So it's like, you know, I think it's sad.
Oh, it's definitely sad. It's surreal though, too, right?
Yeah.
Because we've never seen, other than Bill Cosby, we've never seen like a fall like this before. It's so strange.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things that's funny, like I did an interview with the 2 women that cracked the case on the New York Times. I did a talk with them during that time. I don't really talk about it that much afterwards, because I'm like, well, I did it with them and that's enough. But one of the things I ended up like saying is, well, I wish I had done more during the time. And a lot of people like read a lot of what that could possibly mean.
Right.
Well, actually what it means is I wish I had talked to the guy. I wish I had sat him down and had the uncomfortable conversation. I didn't know about any rapes or anything like that. I just, you know, but I knew he was, you know, I chalked it up to the boss chasing the secretary around the desk, you know, as if that's okay. But I mean, that's how I kind of looked at it. You know, he was, you know, making unwanted advances. That's how I looked at it. But I wish I talked to him. I wish I had sat him down and go, Harvey, you can't do this. You're going to fuck up everything.
Do you think that no one talked to him and maybe that was how he got so completely out of control?
Yeah, maybe his brother Bob. Maybe, but I don't think anybody talked to him about it. And the thing about it is, everybody who was in his orbit knew about it. There's nobody who said they didn't know that didn't know. If you're in his orbit, and that includes all the big actors who he palled around with, they all knew. They all knew. They didn't know anything about rapes, but they had heard.
Yeah.
They had heard things. They had heard about him just, putting the bite on somebody in a limo or something.
The story of the rich, powerful producer and the actress who wants to be in films is a story that's as old as film itself.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those stories that goes on. I mean, it was almost like, I mean, I don't really have a history in film, but from what it's been explained to me, that's always what it's been like.
Yeah, I know. They gave me a tour of Shaw Brothers Studios. And I'm taking a tour of Shaw Brothers Studios, and they take me into the screening room. And then like, okay, well, you see that chair in the back there, that was reserved for the owner of the studio, Run Run Shaw. That's where he sat. And in the back room is a little bed. And that's reserved for where Run Run Shaw took the starlets.
Really?
Yeah. And it was all
Wow. When you found out about all this, like when you first getting, what was it like going from being a guy working in a video store to entering into this bizarre world of power and influence and?
Well, it started with just going on the film festival circuit, because I went from a place where I had like barely left Los Angeles County, all right, most of my life, to like going all around the world. You know, in 1 year I was on 3 different continents.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I was like a shook up soda can. I mean, I was just like living the time of my life. I mean, going to a film festival. Forget having a movie in the festival. Forget having a movie that's like people dig. Just going to film festivals and like meeting all the people and seeing like 3 movies a day at the film festival and get the program. Okay, I'm gonna see this. I'm gonna see this. I'm gonna go have dinner over here. Then I'm gonna haul ass. I can get here for the 10:30 show of blah blah blah. And being interviewed. I've been waiting forever to be interviewed. Now all of a sudden everyone wanted to talk to me. It was great, and I could hold court on any weird theories about film that I had along the way. It was awesome.
For me, how I got introduced to you, I'd heard about Reservoir Dogs, but the first film I saw was Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Pulp Fiction with this girl that I was dating when I first moved to Los Angeles. And I remember being in Man's Chinese Theater watching this.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like this crazy change in my life.
That was in the first few weeks of it opening, yeah, because that's where it opened.
Yeah, crazy change in my life, moving to Los Angeles and then seeing this film. And then I remember very clearly, like at the end of the film, like even in the middle of the film, going, this is the craziest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. And this scene, it symbolized to me like the world was changing, like everything was changing. It was so wild and so crazy. It was a film, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. All the different timelines, how you interwove everything together, but the violence and the chaos and the humor of all of it, like people walked out of that movie theater fucked up.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, wow, like the world is different. Like sometimes you'll see a work of art or something and you'll say that thing just changed everything. It was so wild that it influenced so many other films afterwards. They tried to be like a Pulp Fiction movie, or they tried to be wild.
Well, people would ask me about that and they go, hey, did that really bug you? When there was a period of, it seemed like 5 years in the 90s where like every crime film kind of had this like ironic bit and they talked about TV shows and played music in a weird way and everybody was a smartass. Right? And they asked me like, well, did that bother you? And I go, well, no, it doesn't bother me. One, I don't think any of them are as good as mine, so it just makes mine look better and better, and my dialogue look better and better. But one of my favorite directors is Sergio Leone, and I always considered I was doing to traditional gangster films, like Scorsese kind of Goodfellas kind of movies, what he was doing to traditional westerns when he did his spaghetti westerns. So then the fact that mine hit, and now the fact that it wasn't that they were just trying to do Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs. They were trying to exist in the same subgenre of crime film that I had created, which is what all the other spaghetti westerns that came after Leone's had done. So the fact that it wasn't they were doing just Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction ripoffs, I created a subgenre in gangster films that did not exist before, and they were trying to fill that subgenre, and that was fucking awesome.
That's got to be a wild feeling.
It was great.
You created a subgenre.
I had affected gangster films. I mean, by that point, to do kind of a Scorsese kind of thing was like almost passé.
Yeah. Well, you brought back John Travolta, which is pretty wild too.
Well, I remember even asking somebody. I go, okay, well, when people say Tarantino-esque, what do they mean? And there was a guy I knew. He's like a film analyst. His name Dave Scow, and he goes, well, okay, just to give you an idea, it's like, okay, so in Bad Boys, or yeah, I think it's like Bad Boys. I go, well, like in Bad Boys, okay, you have a couple of henchmen working for the bad guy, and they're sitting in their car, and all of a sudden they have a conversation about an I Love Lucy episode. Okay, that wouldn't have happened without you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, what is that from? I mean, where have you had this flair for references and this way of layering?
That just comes from being Gen X, man. I mean, that was the whole thing about that generation, is the idea that the generation before us that like lived through the 60s. They had the 60s. They had the accoutrement in the 60s. They had all that 60s music. And they looked down on the generation that grew up in the 60s, in the 70s. Well, you didn't have any of that shit. You didn't have the music that we had. Well, maybe we didn't have the music you had. We had our music. But what we did have is we had television. We had the Saturday morning cartoons that we dug. We had Schoolhouse Rock. We had all the TV shows we liked. We had Speed Racer. We had all these kind of things. And they meant something to us. And, kids back then who, if their parents didn't let them watch TV at a certain point, well, the parents might have actually had like the best intentions, but they were actually robbing their children of the pop cultural glue that's going to tie them to their generation when they get older. And so, we had the ABC movies of the week. I mean, we had all that stuff, and we had fucking great movies. If you were going out and seeing the movies of New Hollywood, we had all that. And so, when we got older, it was about talking about that stuff. That was what was worth talking about. And then to actually have characters in a movie talk about that was making them sound realistic, and to be specific about it. You remember that old sitcom? No. Talk about You mean Alice? Okay. Talk about Mel and Alice.
But the dialogue heavy stuff, it was a beautiful counterbalance for the explosive violence and the wild craziness of your films.
Well, look, I had thought in my 20s, I had wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I thought that might be where I'd go because I still look at, to this day, it's been cool how you've been talking so much about like the Comedy Store, and then there's been all these like documentaries come out about it and all these pieces coming out about it and everything. And so growing up in like the 70s and into the 80s, I mythologized the Comedy Store too. And actually, the first time I went down to the Comedy Store, it's like 82, 83. I mean, I saw it forever, driving past it. And finally, I brought it up to a buddy of mine. Hey, let's just go. And so we show up at the Comedy Store around like 11:30, 12 at night or whatever. It's like, say, 82 or 83. We walk in the Comedy Store, on stage, never seen him before in my life, never heard of him before, Andrew Dice Clay. That's who's on stage when we come walking in. And he's doing hickory dickory dock. And he's doing his full like Dice Clay routine. And then the number one thing, like, whoa, boy, he'll never get on Carson with that. Boy, that was the whole thing. Almost like what you were saying about, well, they won't let you do that. Okay, well, he'll never get on Carson with that shit. All right, that was like the whole thing. So he comes on, and Paul Rodriguez comes on, who I'd seen and stuff. And then like a few other guys come on, and then it gets to be towards the end of the show. And then you hear in the audience, bring on the beast. Bring on the beast. Okay, everybody, here we go. Last person of the night. You love him? You can't live without him? Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Kinison. And I never heard of Sam Kinison before. And he walked up there, last guy on the lineup, and I've never laughed harder in my life as I laughed at Sam Kinison doing his routine at the close of the Comedy Store. It was, I mean, like I spilled drinks. It was like I lost control of myself. And it was so great. I came back the next night to see if the Sam Kinison thing was just like did it even happen?
Right.
Did it even happen? And then, yeah, there it was. It happened. That's the guy. And I laughed just as much at the shit a second time. I was like, my God, like, I wanted to follow this guy like a religious leader. All right? I thought it was the most eye-opening stuff I'd ever seen. And I was coming from a similar place. Women had treated me like shit. So I was like, fuck yeah, man. This guy's right. And, I was just 2 steps away from being an incel, all right? So it was like Sam Kinison was speaking the word, man.
I found about Kinison from a girl that I work with at a health club. I worked at this place called the Boston Athletic Club. It was a gym in South Boston. I was teaching people how to lift weights, and there was this girl who was, I think she played volleyball or something. She was like this big, like bold personality. She was hilarious. She was a really funny girl. And she was telling me, because she knew I liked comedy, and I never even thought about doing comedy back then. This was 1986, so I was 19 years old. And she tells me about this HBO special that she saw with this guy Sam Kinison. And then we're out in the parking lot of
and she starts doing the routines,
She starts doing the routine of him paying money to, like, he had a routine about homosexual necrophiliacs paying money to the mortuaries to spend time with the freshest male corpses. So here's this girl.
Oh, this is great!
Yeah, this girl's lying on her stomach in the parking lot going, oh, you mean life keeps fucking in the ass even after you're dead? It never ends! It never ends! Oh, oh! So she's doing the impression of it. I'm howling at her impression of it. And then I got to a video store, and I got a copy of the VHS.
Okay, well, dude, I was into him a year and a half before that. All right, you're talking, he's already back mainstream. He's already done his HBO special by this. This is like no one's giving him shit other than Mitzi.
Yeah, you were there at the ground floor.
Fucking year and a fucking half before he did any TV.
Do you know the origin story of Sam Kinison?
Yeah, I do, yeah. No, I'm pretty familiar.
He's a normal guy, and he got hit by a car when he was a kid, and he got brain damage.
And but he was like the weird, like Marjo Gorner. He was like the weird evangelist kid.
Yeah, but his brother wrote about it in Brother Sam. His brother Bill wrote a book about it. He was like a totally normal kid, gets hit by a car, and then he's just this wild, unstoppable.
That I didn't know. Okay, that I didn't know.
Well, there's quite a few people like that. Roseanne Barr is another one. Hit by a car when she was 15. She spent 9 months afterwards in a mental institution. She couldn't count anymore. She used to be excellent at math. She got hit by a car, spent 9 months in a mental institution, couldn't count anymore.
No,
her brain was completely fucked.
No, I had a friend got hit by a car, and then when she came to, she couldn't speak English. She could only speak Spanish.
Whoa. Could you speak Spanish before that?
Yeah, I think she had like just high school Spanish. But then all of a sudden, like for I think four days or so, she could only access the Spanish part of her brain.
Wow. Well, something happens to people when they get brain injuries where they get really impulsive and wild, and they're reckless, and that's what became of Kinison. He became this wild, reckless, like maniac, and it literally came out of a brain injury. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible. You don't want anybody to have a brain injury. But on the other hand, that's the only way to create a Kinison.
That's the only way yeah, exactly. That's where the lab experiment starts.
It's hard for people to understand how revolutionary that guy was. Because when I was a kid, he was the first guy that ever made me think about comedy, like that I could do comedy. Because I always thought comedy was those guys you saw on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Where they,
well, it's like the first real official thing he did outside of the Comedy Store was he did one of those like comedy tapes that Rodney Dangerfield hosted.
Yeah.
So it was like him and Roseanne Barr, and then like a couple of other, Bob Nelson, doing his boxer dude. Yeah. And then so like, oh my God, this is the dude. This is the dude. This is before he gets his own special. He just does Rodney special.
Yeah. No, I remember that very well. But
so we had all those tapes, man. I watched all that stuff. I remember you used to on Comedy Central. You would do the your little non sequiturs.
Jesus Christ, you remember those?
Yeah, when you had hair and you did the little non sequiturs talking about, okay, pretend I'm sitting in front of a brick wall.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about LA and New York.
Yeah, that's like 93 or 92 or something like that. That's crazy.
No, I was just like I did Mark Maron show. Hey, I remember you, short attention span theater, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Penn Jillette doing all the promo voices.
Penn Jillette, yeah. Well,
Penn Jillette.
Yeah,
Juliet.
God, it's amazing that you were at the store in '82. Was Pryor there at all?
No, he would make it was always a big deal. Him and Robin Williams would just show up every once in a while. No, it was like boring Paul Muni, doing his fucking 45-minute act and blowing down everybody else, right, who wanted to come on. And Tom Brogan, all right, the guy who he had a show. I think he was one of the producers on the Tonight Show at a certain point.
Jimmy Brogan.
Jimmy Brogan. Yeah,
that's right.
Jimmy Brogan would come on. Jeff Altman.
Oh wow. Yeah.
You know, would come on doing their bit. Carrie Snow. There was the time of Carrie Snow, which I always wonder whatever happened to her. I thought she was really funny.
She was really funny. Yeah. I don't know what happened to her. Yeah, that's an amazing time. You that was probably literally the heyday of the Comedy Store where you were there.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely the new generation was coming was coming around. And I talked with Jim Carrey once, and he was like, "No," he goes, "No, that was the time when I knew I could kill with impressions, but I knew I had to get away from impressions." And like Sam Kinison was my best friend, and he was like the one teaching me, telling me I gotta stop doing impressions. And Mitzi would go, "What are you talking about? You're the king of impressions." And I thought, well, okay, so I'm the king of impressions. So what? The best I can hope for is Rich Little. I want more than that. And but that means going up on the Comedy Store and bombing, knowing that if I just did one impression, I'd win the audience completely over. And so, like, when you know you have killer material in your pocket and you refuse to use it, and you refuse, you're gonna, painfully recreate yourself.
She had a few guys like that were guitar acts. They would only sing songs on stage, and then she eventually was telling them, "Hey, put the fucking guitar down. Just go up there and do stand up. You can do stand up."
Right.
And a lot of them just went into a funk and didn't know how to handle it because here you got Mitzi Shore telling you to put the fucking guitar down, but you know that the guitar is your like safety blanket.
Right. Yeah.
It never worked out. I don't know anybody who ever put the guitar down and then just killed it. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they did it, but
you see, okay, and that's that time. If you look at the comedy, okay, say 6 years before that, like the Gary Shandling time, the Brian Regan time and everything, and then it was like everybody was like getting on Make Me Laugh.
Right. Well, Brian Regan was way later.
Yeah.
But it was
no,
the style.
No, Brian Regan is the time we're talking about.
Yeah.
No. I mean the time we're talking about in 80s, right?
Well, Brian Regan really made it after the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But he'd been around. I'm sure I'd seen him on Caroline's Comedy Hour, like in '88.
Yeah, for sure. But he really kind of made it. Brian Regan kind of made it.
I don't know if he actually ever really made it. I always just liked the guy.
Well, he's made it as a big act, as a stand-up comedy act, but like never really made it in television and films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he sells out like Red Rocks in Denver all the time. He sells out giant theaters. Yeah, he does really well. Like, but he's one of those guys like Sebastian Maniscalco, who sells out these like giant ass places, and then you find out about it. You're like, what? Like Sebastian sells out Madison Square Garden like multiple shows in a row.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, again, talking about Dice, he was the first comedian to do that.
Yes, he was the first.
I mean, him in that day selling out Madison Square Garden 3 times in a row. I mean, like for a 3-night engagement, that was
unheard of. Yeah, nobody did that. He sold out Nassau Coliseum, giant arenas,
and then like he did one of the greatest comedy albums of all time. The
Day the Laughter Died.
The Day the Laughter, one of the greatest comedy albums of all time.
I'm so glad you like that.
At the height of his controversy, he does a 2-album set with a hostile fucking audience.
And bombs.
With people leaving like, "You're a fucking asshole."
Yeah,
get out of here, you fucking bitch.
This guy got up, I'll never forget, he goes, "You're about as funny as a glass of milk." Like, that's what he said to him. And Dice is laughing.
That is just the greatest comedy album ever. At the height of his fame.
And I'm pretty sure Rick Rubin produced it.
Yeah, I think he did.
And so these 2 wild motherfuckers said, "Go ahead, release it." Well, Dice has always been this guy that's taken crazy chances like that. Like very few people would have the confidence or have the understanding of who they are to do that. And to know that is like a lot of people are not going to like it. There's probably a lot of people bought those CDs and were like, "What the fuck is this?"
Right.
Because he shows up unannounced at Dangerfield's nightclub in New York City. There's fucking no one in the audience, like because no one knows he's going to be there, and he's doing this complete unprepared set. He has no material. He's just fucking around. And sometimes
he's got a John Travolta impersonation, waiting for the end. I know I can do the staying alive thing, and that'll wrap up the audience.
Well, that was his thing. He used to be Andrew Silverstein. And he had all these impressions that he would do. He would do Travolta, he would do Stallone, and then at the end he would do this Dice Man character. And the Dice Man character was so good, he abandoned all the other shit and just kind of became the Dice Man. That must have been wild, though, to be there at that time.
No, to walk into the place and he's on stage.
Yeah.
Full black leather jacket, doing the whole cigarette bit.
Wow.
Doing his "I Dream of Jeannie" jokes.
I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah, I remember it was like, "Okay, master, which can I grant you?" "Okay, make your tongue 10 feet long and stick it up my ass."
That era of Hollywood, like to be there at that time, it was a tumultuous time too. It was like so much wild shit was happening, and for you to be a young guy, to be in that scene and see it all go down, like just to be a young guy back then. How much of that affected the way you viewed things, the way you viewed your work, and the things that you made?
Well, I don't know if it had any, like, it was just exciting. The 90s were fun. The 90s look like the 70s part 2. I don't know if I thought about that then.
Right.
But I think about that now, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I was like, I was still pretty young. I was like in my beginning 30s and my 20s, because I was so broke, like working minimum wage jobs. I didn't like have as much fun in my 20s as I could have had. Well, I made up for it in my 30s.
When you brought back John Travolta, that was a big deal too, because you had this enormous movie, and that was like one of the first times I can recall, correct me if I'm wrong, where a guy falls out, like he's not a big star anymore. It's gone, it's over. And then you put him in a massive movie, and he's really fucking good. He's really fucking good. It's interesting. It's weird. He's a heroin addict who's an assassin who also can dance, and him and Uma Thurman on the dance floor. You changed his whole life.
Yeah. No, it happened that way. Yeah.
Was there resistance to try to put him in that movie?
Oh, of course. I mean,
Yeah?
the only thing he had done that had made any noise in a long time was, those Look Who's Talking movies.
Yeah.
And okay, there's this thing that's floating around of like, my initial cast list for Pulp Fiction is kind of floating around on the internet. Somebody got a hold of it and printed it out. And it's true, but there's a story behind it. It's not just a normal cast list. The idea, I remember my agent telling me, okay, so you're getting a deal. So one of the things that you do when you get a deal at the time was with TriStar, and it was like you write down everybody you can think of who would be more or less you think right for the character, and you write down everybody, and if they sign off on it, well, then you can cast any of those people you want. So I thought of everybody who could ever even possibly play the roles, and I just wrote like a whole shitload of names. Not that I was even going to consider it. It was like, no, throw more names on there, and that's just once they sign off on it, this is this talent pool I have to choose from. So I just wrote down a whole shitload of names of people that I thought, in the wildest stretch of the imagination, could be okay for the role if it all worked out. And then it came time to sign off on it, and then they were like, okay, well, we want you to take 2 names off the list, and we'll sign off on it. And I go, oh, well, who? And they go, we want you to take off William Peterson, and we want you to take off John Travolta.
Wow.
And I go, well, I'm not going to take off John Travolta. Now, this was actually before I even wanted John Travolta. I wrote the part of Vincent for Michael Madsen. It was his role. And I'd written Pumpkin and Honey Bunny for Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer, and I'd written The Wolf for Harvey Keitel, and I'd written Vincent Vega for Michael Madsen. And then I've been writing the script for not quite a year, but like say 8 or 9 months. 2 weeks before I'm finished with it, Michael Madsen accepts the role in Wyatt Earp, the Kevin Costner, Lawrence Kasdan movie. And so he's not available. And at the time, I was thinking maybe a John Travolta more for the Eric Stoltz part. Not that I would have dressed him like Eric Stoltz, but he was that guy. And so then I get together with John, and we have lunch, and he's a really great guy. And I start thinking, well, he could be a real legitimate replacement for Michael Madsen as Vincent. I can see him being a really, really good Vincent. And so I say I want to cast him. And now it's not TriStar anymore. Now it's Miramax. And Harvey Keitel is John Travolta, but he just does straight to video movies, and that talking baby shit. You can have anybody you want. Like you could get Sean Penn if you wanted. Now he's a great actor. You could get and at the time, and he wasn't at the time. He was like Daniel Day-Lewis would do this, and he doesn't do anything, but he would do this. And it's one thing to actually push some guy who's not hot, but it's another thing to like a guy's hot and wants to do it, and then you're pushing him aside, to push another dude. And I just literally just said, I go, well, look, here's the thing that I had in my side while the rest of the industry was telling me I was crazy, was, one of my favorite writers has always been Pauline Kael. And Pauline Kael was always a huge John Travolta fan. Even when she didn't like the movie, she liked him. And they had a piece in the Los Angeles Times maybe 5 years earlier about what the fuck happened to Travolta. And they interview her. And at the end, they go, well, can John Travolta come back? And then she said, well, he needs to come back. Movies need him. And so I just, knowing that I had Pauline Kael on my side, I could literally face down any Hollywood fuck about it. That was like my Siegfried sword. All right, and they were all dragons, and I had the word of Pauline Kael in my back pocket. She backed me up, and so I said, well, look, Harvey Weinstein, look, Harvey, you need to watch John Travolta in Brian De Palma's Blowout, and if you don't think that's a great performance, then maybe we shouldn't be making this movie together, and I should make it with somebody else.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, it was okay to have Travolta.
Well, is there another silent moment?
Yeah.
Just remember, Miramax said it's okay to use John Travolta.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, goddamn, you were right, though. I mean, because there was something about seeing him in the movie, like, wow, fucking John Travolta? Because it like I said, the movie was so odd and so special that it was an added element of having this guy that was supposed to be done. And now all of a sudden he's back. And not only is he back, he's fucking sensational.
Yeah, and there was this weird kind of things. I don't think that kind of comeback had happened in a bit. And
Did it ever happen?
Well, I'm sure there. Oh yeah, like a case could be made it happen with Frank Sinatra with From Here to Eternity, and like a couple of other things, or like a character actor comes back. He's been doing crappy stuff, but then he has like a nice role, like Martin Landau and Tucker. Now he's doing stuff again.
Right.
Where he had been doing exploitation movies before, but not like the guy becomes a big star again.
Yeah.
And but there was this thing, I remember Manola Dargis even writing about it at the time, and she goes, has a comeback ever been this much fun? It was sort of like a thing, yeah, we always used to like John Travolta.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of let it die on the vine, and now we're seeing it. And yes, we were right to like him before. He's really charming in this. He's really interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't about
You
ability.
enjoyed it, yeah.
Yes, it was a perception issue. Like you perceived him as being in a category of actors that had been relegated to, like you said, off these videos.
Well, there was an interesting thing, because remember we screened Pulp Fiction at this festival in Italy, the Taormina Film Festival, and the people who were on so it was my movie, and I was part of the jury, and so the whole jury kind of watched my movie, and it was like, had this big amphitheater that's like was made 1,000 years ago, so it's all being projected outside, and we're all sitting on these stone steps, bleachers, And so it's like Adam McGoyan, the Canadian filmmaker, and John Waters and Pedro Almodovar. They're all there, and they're all watching my movie for the first time. And then like the Jackrabbit Slim scene starts happening, and then all of a sudden, they say yes, they're going to join the twist contest, and they walk up on the stage, and then all of a sudden John Travolta starts taking off his shoes, and then they're all like, oh my God, he's gonna dance! Holy shit, John Travolta's gonna fucking dance in the movie. And then he dances. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
Right, because people forgot how fucking good of a dancer he is. Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
Go back and watch that movie. Wow. When you finish that film, like how long is an editing set? Like how long does it take from last scene filmed, that's a wrap, to the editing process of putting together a film like that with all the intricate?
Yeah, people ask me that a lot, and I always kind of just have amnesia about how long it takes. I think it's something like 3 or 4 months, something like that.
Wow.
To edit it all together.
Do you lose your vision in that time? I mean, it's like it seems like
no, it just gets better and better and better.
But what I'm thinking is like, is it hard to see what you're seeing? Like, because you're so close to it. Is it hard to see it fresh?
No.
To see it how a person's going to see it if they're watching it for the first time?
No, it's really fun. After shooting the movie, it's really fun to actually start playing with the edit, and then using the scenes that you like and the takes that you like and building it. And whenever you do a good cinematic sequence, then for the next 2 weeks, you start the day looking at the scene that you did that you liked. Okay, let's watch that car chase again, or let's watch that music montage again. Okay, that gets our blood up. Okay, we're the guys who did that. Let's do this.
Is it true that you have a 20-hour cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, that's not. She was exaggerating.
These motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I was excited. I was like, maybe I'll put it out on Netflix.
No, it's like if I were to cut the film, where time was not an issue, just not to throw every piece of shit in there. All right, but okay, if time is not an issue and I can use all the footage that I shot and don't have to worry about time, it would probably be about 3 hours and 20 minutes or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you ever thought of doing that?
I might. Yeah, I might.
That would be
well, there's all kinds of stuff in the book that I didn't shoot or anything that I came up with later, or I just never even bothered to because I know it would never be in the film. But if I were to do that after you've read the book, it would seem like, oh wow, I guess this is like a movie version of the book. All right, because there's all these sequences that are in the book that weren't in the movie.
But you wrote the book after you wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
Now, when you have this, how do you write? Do you have a storyboard where you have these ideas? Do you just kind of go on the fly and go wherever your creativity takes you?
Well, sort of. I mean, I write from the, when I write my scripts, I start with the first scene and then just go through the story. And normally, when I do a movie, I have more or less the story worked out. I mean, and also because I'm dealing in genre and subgenre, so that even dictates a bit. I mean, if I'm writing Kill Bill, I pretty much know at the end of the movie she's going to kill Bill. All right, but exactly how she's going to kill Bill and how we feel about it at the end, well, that's left open for conjecture. Now I need to get to there, but I can assume that's going to happen. And in Inglourious Basterds, I figure it's going to end with the big mission. Now, exactly what goes down in the big mission is to be revealed. But it's a genre movie, and it's a bunch of guys on a mission movie, and we're heading in that direction. So it's like so normally I have it worked out, but what I've learned through trial and error, or just I guess from experience, what I've learned, not trial and error, but from experience, what I've learned is that little mapping out of more or less what happens in the story really only applies till the middle of the story. Because by the time you get to the middle of the story, well, now you know so much more before you ever started putting pen to paper. I mean, now I know who these people are. Now I am these people, these characters. I am them. They are me. Now I truly know who they are, and now I've invested in this world to such a degree that the hope is by the 40% mark or the 50% mark that the characters just take it from me. And then from that point on, they're writing the story.
Wow. So you're just essentially thinking through their eyes or thinking through their minds and behaving as them and just knowing
I
who
am
they
a storyteller, so if I
Right.
have to steer them in a direction I think is more interesting or more exciting, well then obviously I can do that. I have the power to do that. But I'm trying not to do that. I figure if they want to do it, they're right. That is truth talking to me. And I figure they should know best.
Yeah.